Welcome to Build Your Dream Business, brought to you by Solo. More than just a booking app, we're a community for independent pros in hair, beauty and wellness. I'm Katrina, here to bring you closer to real stories of success from the industry's finest and share practical advice to help your business flourish. At Solo, we understand the journey of working independently, and our goal is to connect, empower and inspire you. We're here to make sure that even though you work solo, you're never truly alone. In today's episode, we talk to Emma Cleary. We discuss her journey from modelling to building her social media business, Embrace Socials. Emma shares her insights on personal branding, engaging audiences on Instagram, the importance of authenticity, and creating valuable content. She also offers advice on overcoming the fear of sharing your expertise online. Hi, Emma. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you kick off by telling us a bit about your journey into social media?
So my name's Emma Cleary. My background's actually in modelling. So many, many years ago, I got a marketing degree and I kind of thought my life would be corporate and in an office in London, getting my latte every day. And it just didn't happen that way. I fell into modelling, which was fabulous. I did that for about 15 years. And I was really lucky. I travelled all around the world. I met some amazing people, really, really fab. But part of modelling, and I think people don't realise that, is actually building your own personal brand. So I managed to build my Instagram following, over 1 million followers, hundreds of thousands across other platforms. I kind of combined everything I'd learned in marketing, obviously with my love of modelling. And then lockdown came and kind of couldn't work the same way. And it made me, I'm sure like everybody, reassess what was I going to do next? Where am I going with my life? So I kind of retired from modelling and I wasn't sure where the next part of my journey would be. I started volunteering. So I've been doing that for about 4 years, 3.5, 4 years. And through that, I've kind of managed to build a business that's thread together, my passion for marketing, my love of social media and growing a brand, and most of all, my love for helping people. And at Christmas, I started my own business called Embrace Socials. So it's kind of the combination of all of those things. Generally it's small businesses, product-based or service-based businesses, and I teach them all about Instagram, how they can tell their own story, how they can grow their brand, how they can show up online, to hopefully grow their following, make more sales and make more money. So that's what I've been doing.
What a cool journey and what a cool way to take something that, doesn't feel like it was necessarily your day job, the marketing side of modelling, and turning that into a business. How did you achieve that high growth on your first Instagram account when you were modelling? Did you have a strategy behind it?
I don't know how long you've been on Instagram, but I've been on it basically since it started. And obviously to begin with, it was a really visual platform. So you had an advantage if you were working in a visual field. I'm a model. People want to see what models are getting up to. They want to see the behind the scenes. So I was at an advantage because it was a visual platform and it was much easier to grow then than now. So yeah, it was hard work. I didn't have as much of a strategy as now. I understood that I needed to deliver, to give people what they want, and then when you find out what they want, keep giving it to them. So I understood that, but there wasn't a clear strategy. So it took me probably about 13-ish years to get to 1 million followers. So it's still fabulous, but the growth is, not too amazing compared to this account. I started this account 6 months ago. This time I have a strategy. So there's a very, clear process that I follow. And that's also what I teach. I've hit about just over 250,000 in the first 6 months. So I'm not saying it will continue like that, but if it did, I would obviously hit 1 million a lot quicker than 13 years, which is what it took me the first time. So having structure and having a strategy and having a clear sort of goal in mind, the growth has been a lot quicker. But it's all a learning curve. If I hadn't have, had the other account and learned the things I've learned and the mistakes I made along the way, I don't think the journey would be as quick this time.
Isn't it crazy how much Instagram's changed? I remember it first coming out and just pointing my phone camera at like a sky outside framed by my window and just posting it. And that was it.
Yeah, and do you remember Valencia,
XX Pro?
Loved Valencia. Yeah, R.I.P. Valencia.
Yeah, and it's like it changed so much, and what isn't actually that much of a long period of time, like just 10 years.
I even remember when they brought stories out and I hated it. And I was like, oh, like no one's going to like this. Oh, what's stories? And now it's like my favorite thing. Like I like stories better than I like posting in my feed. So I think sometimes we're all just a bit like against change, but sometimes change is good.
You said that you learned quite a lot when you were growing your first account. What are the kind of main takeaways that you got from that?
Lots of things. Like sometimes I was doing a lot of like collab posts back in the day. Like I remember people, like if they had like a bigger account, they'd be like, oh, do you want to collab? And if they had a bigger account, you used to always say yes. But sometimes that really doesn't help. Probably my biggest takeaway is a larger audience isn't always better. And I know that's easy for me to say as someone with a larger audience, but an engaged audience is so much more powerful. An engaged and interested and relevant audience. That was the whole reason I started another account, because when I talk to people about, Embrace Socials, they assume that it's grown because I shared it on the other profile or it's just the other profile and I changed the name or something like that. But I really didn't. It's a different name. And I bought a new phone. I've got a new iTunes. I got a new email address. I got a new Instagram account. I did everything fresh. And there's really good reason for that. The following on my modeling account are obviously there because they're following my modeling journey. If I was to try and talk to those people about growing their brands online, I mean, that's not going to be relevant to them. It's not going to resonate with them and it's not going to be of any use to them. So it's of no use to them and it's of no use to me. So even though the number is bigger, that audience isn't relevant to this subject. I must say it daily. I'm sure, if you cut me in half, that message is tattooed on the inside of my body. It's an ego thing. The numbers look nice, but they don't mean anything if it's not an engaged, relevant audience that is into you and the things that you're talking about and the products or the service that you offer. So don't worry about the number. Don't get tied up in the number. And one of the other big takeaways I have is that unfollows aren't a bad thing. I used to take it personal, like, oh my God, the number's gone down and this person's unfollowed me. But if someone unfollows you, chances are they were never going to buy from you or invest in you. They weren't into what you offer. And that's not a reflection on you. That's a reflection on them. And if you're not for them, then that's fine. That's what social media is all about, because you've only got one scroll and you'll find somebody else. So an unfollow isn't necessarily a negative thing. It's someone that was never going to become a customer or a client anyway. So it's much better to have people that care, that want to know about you and your business and your service, rather than just people that are just hanging around, lurking and not engaging. So don't ever take unfollows personally.
Would having those irrelevant followers actually end up having a negative impact on how your Instagram performs, because it will just lower your engagement rate?
Yeah, potentially, because growth comes from engagement. So if you're creating content that's being engaged upon, those are positive signals to Instagram that your content's good. So if it's getting engagement, Instagram will send it wider, and that's where you find growth. So the reverse of that is if you're putting content out and it isn't being engaged with, it isn't getting likes and shares and saves, that can hold you back and that can stunt your growth. So if someone's just lurking on the page and not engaging, it can potentially be holding you back from growth. In some ways it is positive to have people unfollow, as long as the people that you have left are engaging and you're creating content that speaks to those people.
So did you start with kind of identifying the sort of followers you want?
Yeah, I wanted to speak to ideally small business owners. Not always, but, interestingly, as I speak to a lot of people, very often our target audience or our ideal client is actually someone like us or someone like us a few years ago. So not always, but sometimes people make a business out of a gap in the market that they've seen. So maybe they were looking for a product or they were looking for a service and they couldn't find it, or they couldn't find exactly what they wanted in the way they wanted it. So it does often lead people into starting businesses where they saw a space. And when that happens, when it comes to creating content, you need to think of the questions that you had in the beginning. What were the things that sort of led you into doing what you do now? If you can create content about that, that's going to speak to your ideal audience. So knowing who your ideal audience is probably the first and the most important thing when it comes to sort of creating content and knowing where you're going with your social media.
Yeah, I think that educational content works really well for our sector in the hair and beauty industry as well. You know, professionals sharing their knowledge and putting themselves across as experts and filling the gap in that knowledge that their followers might have. And then therefore making them want to book their services. Would you say that educational content has started doing a lot better in recent years as well compared to this previous?
Massively. So it's like what we said. Instagram before, it was just pictures. You took a random picture, you banged on a couple of hashtags, you came back the next day and the followers were there. It doesn't happen like that anymore. Nowadays, you're almost having to earn your followers. And we see, like, time and time again, the most highly engaged upon content does tend to be educational or entertaining. So if you can incorporate that into your own content strategy or into the content that you're putting out, it shows you as kind of more of an authority in your field. It makes you look like you know your stuff. And I'm sure you do know your stuff, but sometimes it's about packaging it up and telling people or showing people that you know your stuff.
That's super interesting, I think, especially in hair and beauty, because, you know, our professionals are performing those treatments because their followers can't do them themselves. So they kind of need to put themselves across to that authority who, you know, they would book that treatment with. There's another kind of part of it in hair and beauty, which is, you know, turning people engaging with your content into actual bookings. What kind of calls to action would you advise people to have to make sure that they're actually monetizing their Instagram account?
I mean, you always want to be pulling everything that you put out, pulling it back to business. So always pull it back to a service you offer or, you know, a product you sell or something that you've done. So like point of view stuff can be really good. Befores and afters can be really good. Probably the most important would be testimonial content. It's all right you saying, you know, oh, I'm the best hairdresser in the whole entire world. But if you have testimonial content from real people, it just adds that like another layer. It's a bit deeper than just you saying you're great. It's other people saying you're great. So I think testimonials carry so much weight. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm that person. Like if I go on Amazon Prime and I'm buying something, oh my God, I go in the reviews. If the reviews are trash, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, first thing. Yeah.
100%. So I think reviews, people don't use them as much as they probably should because no one wants to feel like they're just blowing their own trumpet all the time. But if someone else is saying it, it's not you blowing your own trumpet, it's someone blowing your trumpet for you, which is always nicer. So that kind of stuff is not to be sort of overlooked, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you said. It's kind of, you know, you can talk about how brilliant you are and that's really serves a purpose, but then you can sort of pair that with that educational content. So you're not just saying I'm brilliant, you're showing that you're brilliant by providing that education. And then also that paired with social proof from your customers, then proving that, you know, you have carried out this treatment, it has been fantastic. That's a really powerful combination. What metrics do you think professionals should be looking out for when they're looking to grow their accounts? Do you use any sort of Instagram measuring tools or anything like that?
I don't use outside apps or anything like that. I know some people do. I say to people to pay attention to the engagement inside their own sort of insights. Obviously, all metrics are good. A like is good, a comment is good. They're all good. Probably the most valuable saves, shares, and watch time as well. So think about it yourself. You know, if I'm on Instagram and somebody posts something about drunk girls day drinking brunch or something like that, I love day brunch. So I'll be like, ha ha ha, and give it a like and move on. But, you know, if Brad Pitt makes a 7-hour video, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm pulling up a cup of tea and I'm watching every second of that because I am so interested. So it's not just a like, it's keeping someone on your content. So if it was a reel, it would be keeping them on the video to the end. If it's a carousel, it's having them slide all the way through. If it's stories, it's having the click through all the way through all the slides. So it's about grabbing people and then keeping them for as long as you can. So watch time is one to keep. Saves, like I said, you know, a like is good, a comment is good. But if somebody saves something, that just shows that they have like a deeper appreciation for you, for the content you've put out, for what it was you were teaching them or showing them. It's so good that they want to, you know, save it and come back to it later. So it's more powerful than maybe just a like, although there is nothing wrong with a like and we will take all of the engagement that we can get. But yeah, if you were going to prioritize them, I would say to look at saves.
Yeah, interesting. I suppose it's that difference between scrolling through and giving something a like, and it's the difference of how much time is spent appreciating what you put in.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then therefore how much time they're spending looking at your content. And then I suppose the likelihood of them following through to your next action, of whether that's, a booking or requesting or a promotion.
People like to watch a process. People like to watch a journey. It's psychological. It's in our nature as humans. We like to see a sort of beginning, middle, and end. So if you can capture that in creating hairstyle or any kind of beauty treatment or something like that. So, not just a before and after, as in like, here's the before picture and here's the after. If you can somehow capture the journey, you'll find often people will watch that if you make that as a reel, because naturally as humans, we're just wired to want to see the end. So that's something to also bear in mind when it comes to creating reels. Our listeners who are, of course, hair and beauty professionals, on paper, their day job is, performing treatments. But as we're kind of mentioning, they are having to be their own marketing manager, their own social media manager. It's a lot on their plates, which can be absolutely exhausting, sort of keeping all this plate spinning. Do you have any advice on managing your time? Do you think, what do you tell your clients? Should people be putting aside, every Monday to look through social media? Would it work better to, do a little bit every day? How do your clients manage there? All people are different. There's not really a one size fits all. I would love to say, I batch all my content on Sunday night and everything's prepped, a month in advance. The reality is, it doesn't work like that. I've got children, I've got a life, I've got a job. So I try and know the subjects I'm going to be talking about during the course of a week. I do try to. So I do try and obviously advise my students and stuff to do the same thing. My first advice would be obviously to follow my Instagram page, because I put up new tips and tricks and hacks and stuff to make your life easier every single day, 7 days a week. I also just say to people, be realistic, never put content out just for content's sake. If gurus are saying, you should be posting 5 times a week, and you think, do you know what, I just can't cope with that on top of everything else, and you can cope with twice a week, you do you. There's no point you burning yourself out and resenting it and hating it. Just you do you. If twice a week feels like what you can do that. If 3 times a week feels like what you can manage, even better. I post 7 times a week, and that's a lot. I wouldn't tell anybody to post. That's in my grid. I wouldn't tell anybody else to do that. But the fact of the matter is, this is my job. So I get more time to sort of be thinking about it and planning and all of that, more than your average person who has a job doing something completely different. So do what fits with you, and your audience will come to understand your pattern. If your pattern is 3 times a week, they'll come to understand that. Instagram comes to understand that. So don't burn yourself out for the sake of creating, content. Put content out that feels like you. Always try and be true to yourself. The growth I'm seeing this time round, I credit to me just being my whole entire self. And it's not that I wasn't being myself when I was modelling. It's just models are whoever you're paying them to be. If I'm doing a job for Harley Davidson, then I'll be a rock chick. If I'm doing a job for Mothercare, I'm going to be like your Earth Mother. I'm being whoever I'm being paid to be. This time round, I'm being who I am. And some people will like it and some people won't, but that's fine. And that's what I say to everybody that I work with. You do you. Don't do what you think you should do. You do you, because you'll find your crowd. For as long as you have a business, there will always be an audience. It's about you being yourself, because it's hard work trying to be someone else. Just be yourself. No one else is you. No one else has your business. No one else has your journey. No one else has your background. So show up as yourself and you'll find your people. And that's what social media is all about. Yeah, and it is so much more exhausting, not being authentic and, 100%. Going back to those metrics, how often, and again, obviously it's different for everybody, but how often would you kind of review how a post is doing, how a type of post is doing, in, then starting to think maybe I should maybe I should then start approaching things differently to get higher engagement rate for the kind of audience that I want to get in? It can be difficult because you don't know. Instagram's sneaky and we don't know exactly how it works. I would say never judge a post sort of within its first couple of days, because the posts I've had that have gone super viral, and I'm talking about 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, that kind of level, none of them have gone viral immediately from being post. So they don't go 0, 100,000, 200,000, 300. It doesn't work like that. The posts I've had that have gone viral have taken 6 weeks or 8 weeks to get there. So I've never had something go viral from when it was posted. So it's always sort of performed average, okay, the same as everything else. And it'll be like a few weeks later, I'll suddenly notice an influx of followers and I'll think, where are they coming from? And I'm going back through my posts, and then all of a sudden you'll find one that's on like 2.5 million. And I think, oh, okay, that was ages ago. I don't know what that's all about. So, don't judge a piece of content too harshly when you first put it out. And also that different pieces of content have different jobs to do. Yeah. So not every piece of content you put out is going to get loads and loads of saves and shares. If it's a selling post, for example, you're talking about a service that you offer, it's going to be different to when you're teaching someone something. So to understand that different pieces of content have a different job to do, and that's okay. I kind of give it an example like, your Instagram page is not an advert, it's a box set. It's not just a 30-second advert where you're just selling one thing. Every single post you put out is like a different episode of a huge box set. And some episodes you watch will make you laugh, and some of them make you cry, and some of them make you relate to you, and some of them you watch again because you love them so much. And every piece of content you create has a different job to do. So some will get more saves, and some will get more likes, and some will get less. And that's okay. That's all part of painting a bigger picture. And your Instagram account, it's like your own reality TV show, every bit you put out is your episode, and every episode has a different job to do. So just be mindful of that. It's really easy to be harsh on ourselves or to look at someone else's page and think, oh, their post got this much, but maybe that was an educational post, or maybe it was a meme and loads of people liked it because it was really funny, and you were putting out a selling post. Well, not as many people are going to like a selling post as they are, a baby reindeer meme that's going to make everybody laugh. So different pieces of content have different jobs, and don't be harsh on yourself.
Yeah, that's a really great way of looking at it. Kind of rewinding to the beginning, we're definitely going to have some listeners that haven't even really started their social media journey, or are very much just kind of dipping their toe into it, and wouldn't have even got to the point of analysing how well a reel or a meme is performing. What advice would you give to our listeners who are still kind of nervous about putting themselves out there? What are some of the first steps that they could take to kind of get over that fear?
It's never going to be perfect. Messy progress is better than no progress. I say that to every single person. It's on the last slide of the presentation that I give everybody. Messy progress is better than no progress. When I look back at the content I was making 6 months ago, I want to shrivel up inside myself, and I think my content was rubbish. But I know it's got better, but it's got better because I show up every day. And again, I'm not advocating, posting 7 days a week. Obviously, it's my business, it's different. But I show up every day. Christmas Day, New Year's Day, when I'm hungover, when I'm tired, when I don't feel like it, I still show up. And I know that my content's improved. But if I'd have waited until I felt ready, or if I'd have waited until it was perfect, I'd still be waiting. I ummed and ahed about this business from lockdown until basically 2024. I sat on the fence for 4 years, and I still wasn't 100% ready when I did it. And I'm still not 100% ready now. You just have to take the leap and try and be yourself as much as you can. Start with stories. It's so easy. A story lasts for 24 hours and you might hate it. But if it reaches 10 people, if it reaches 20 people, that's 10 or 20 people you wouldn't have reached if you didn't put the story out there. And by tomorrow, it'll be gone. You can just dip your toe in a little bit. And when you feel more confident, maybe you'll add voiceover to a reel. So you could take a video of a service or a treatment that you offer, and you could add your voice. I'm not suggesting that you should sit down and make a 15-minute monologue to camera. I would even hate to do that. But you've got to start, and you can start small, and you can work your way up. And it gets easier the more you do it. It's like anything. It's like riding a bike and all of those things that you just have to start.
Yeah, it's like feeling fear and doing it anyway, isn't it? Once you do it and you see that nothing bad happens and you don't get terrible feedback, which why would you? Nobody's ever messaged anyone on Instagram saying awful post.
Yeah, exactly.
And all you see is positivity or neutrality at absolute worst. Nothing bad happened. You can do it again.
It's not hard. It's just new.
Love that.
And when something's not new, it's not hard anymore. So it's not hard. It's just new.
That's brilliant. We'll also have some listeners that are coming to hair and beauty as sort of second career. I suppose you've done something very similar. As someone who's had a career change too, what was your biggest fear in changing careers, and how do you overcome that?
This is a second career for me, and I'm quite open as a person, and I wasn't sure before I started the page, like how much was it going to be about me, because it's not a personal page, it's a business page. But I've been reasonably open. I'm on my stories every day, and I've brought people along from the journey. And if you go to my profile, there's a highlight that I think it's labeled something like 0 to 250k or something like that. And I'm just talking to camera. I talk the same way I do now. I talk as if there are people there, even though there wasn't people there. And I'm just like, look, I'm trying this thing. I don't know if it's going to work. You know, I'm trying to do it. If you want to do it too, let's do it together. Like, follow me. I'm going to be helping you. I'm going to be showing up. You know, I've brought people along on the journey. And I think that connects with people, because I have people message me now and they'll say, oh, I started following you when you were on 500 followers and you're still doing this thing. So, you know, I don't make reels about that, but I'm in my story. I'm building connection. You know, I want people to like me, to trust me, because we know that people buy from people they know, like, and trust. So you're always going to get some business from the people you know. That's referrals, it's word of mouth, it's repeat customers, all of that. But when you get outside of that group of people, how do you find people? Well, they have to like you and they have to trust you. How do you do that? You do that by being present in your social media and being yourself and building connections with people and being friendly and being open and being excited. So that's kind of what I try and do. And I'm not suggesting for any minute, you know, you should bring us inside the shower with you and show us like cutting your toenails. It's not about that. It's not about being as open as that, but just about being, as I've sort of been saying all the way through, just being yourself, connecting with people, talking to people about the things that you know they want to hear about, and be their friend. I think you'd be surprised. I know, I mean, it bloody shocks me every day. Every day I pick up that phone and I'm like, oh my God, it's entirely possible. But obviously taking that first step, and it is scary. And sometimes you're talking and there is no one there. It was the same for me. It took me, I was putting out 2 reels a day, and I don't advocate this, but I was putting out 2 reels a day, 7 days a week of just growth content that was going to help me to grow. I wasn't selling anything. I wasn't teaching anything. It was all just growth. 2 reels a day. And it still took me almost a month to get my first 1,000 followers. So I maybe made 50 reels or more before I even got 1,000 followers. So, you know, I was talking in the beginning to not very many people, but I just kept going and I just kept showing up and I just kept repeating that message again and again. But, you know, from 1,000 to 10,000, I don't know, but it was a lot quicker. And then from 10,000 to 100,000, quicker again, and 100 to 200, and so on. So just show up as you.
Yeah, it's a really nice idea. So, you know, if you are perhaps new to the industry or new to even your journey on social media, rather than just being new to the industry, kind of sharing that with your followers and showing that vulnerability to then, yeah, you know, put yourself across as human, not just sort of faceless business, because that's the beauty of being a self-employed beauty professional. Like, you are your brand and you can really utilize that to your advantage.
Yeah.
What would make you book a beauty professional services if you came across them on Instagram?
I love being pampered. And I mean, I think there's some amazing like facialists out there at the moment that are really capturing, you know, their treatments and all the amazing face masks. And I like all the close-ups. I quite like original audio as well. I know a lot of people talk about trending audio, but I like original audio. I like seeing, you know, the products being mixed up and it all being applied. And I like seeing people that put time and effort into their social media. Obviously, I think maybe because it's my business, and a little bit of their personality. I love that. When someone's talking on their stories, love that. Like, I want to see behind the scenes. I want to know what you're up to. Even things like, I don't know, so if someone puts how they take their coffee, like, I'm like, oh my God, I have oat milk too, or whatever it is. So it's funny the things that people can connect with. And okay, you might not make a reel about that, but you could pop it in your story. I had a long drive the other day and I was listening to a murder podcast. I posted about it on my story and I must have had more than 100 people DM me. And I was like, what? Actually had nothing to do with my business, but it was a really big connection point. Loads of people connected with that. Obviously, we all love crime podcasts too. So it can be surprising what resonates with people, you know?
And I think, again, like, you know, being a self-employed professional and it's just you, you're in a position to do that. You control your brand. You don't have to worry about someone above you say, oh, maybe you should talk about it.
Yeah, can't do that.
You can completely be yourself. And then, that gives room for those connections.
I'm not going to do it every day, but it was just a connection point. You just don't know. You don't know what's going to resonate with people.
It's that nosiness as well, isn't it? I really like cleaning content, watching people cleaning their faces.
Me too.
And it's just very reassuring if, as a customer, looking at a professional's Instagram, being like, oh, look, this is their cleaning routine. They've got a clean space. So it sort of serves that double purpose.
Yeah.
A question we always ask at the end of every podcast, what advice would you give to yourself if you could speak to yourself at the beginning of your journey?
Do you know what? It sounds really weird, but I don't think I'd do anything different. It's been a really steep learning curve. I knew there was a demand for helping people on social media. I knew that, but I had no idea it was going to be as wild as it has been. But I'm loving it. I'm just loving it. I wake up excited every day. I genuinely love to help people. I feel like I'm getting so much back from it. It's so good for the soul. And when I speak to other people, because I coach a lot of people, not necessarily Instagram coaches, but it could be, I don't know, I had someone yesterday who was an employment coach, or I've got fertility coaches or sleep coaches or life coaches or whatever. And sometimes they don't want to feel like they're giving away their service, so then people won't come to them. But I think it's the opposite. I don't know if it's a bit hippie or whatever, but I think if you give out good, you get back good. My account is testament to that, because every single post I create is, helpful, useful, and I get so much back from it. So I wouldn't change the journey. And it is hard. I work 7 days a week. I work till 11 or 12 o'clock at night in really long days, but I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it for the world. I love it. And if you do something you love, a business that comes from something you love, it doesn't feel like work anyway. I just think someone's going to know in a minute that I'm enjoying it too much, and they'll be like, you've got to stop.
It's such a funny thing, isn't it? Is that I'm having too much of a good time?
Should I be doing this? Am I supposed to be getting paid? I'm not sure. And I'm sure there are loads of your followers out there that probably have built businesses out of passion projects, out of things that they love, and it just doesn't feel like work. So I wouldn't change a thing. And long may this wild ride continue. I've got no idea what's coming. It's every day is Christmas.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing. We can't wait to see where the wild ride takes you. We'll be following you. Some really, really wonderful tips for our listeners. And we'll make sure to put all of your details in our show notes as well, so that everybody can check you out and give you a follow and engage. Thank you so much for your time today, Emma. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you.
And you. I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favourite podcast app. If you like the episode, why not leave a review or share it with a beauty industry friend? And if you're curious about Solo, you can download it for free on the App Store or Google Play and take advantage of our free trial.